President Obama made an important announcement recently regarding ISIS. Now let's take a look at that.
If you threaten America, you will find no safe haven. We will increase our support to forces fighting these terrorists on the ground. Now, it will take time to eradicate a cancer like ISIL. And any time we take military action, there are risks involved, especially to the servicemen and women who carry out these missions. But I want the American people to understand how this effort will be different from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. It will not involve American combat troops fighting on foreign soil. This counterterrorism campaign will be waged through a steady, relentless effort to take out ISIL wherever they exist using our air power and our support for partners' forces on the ground. This strategy of taking out terrorists who threaten us while supporting partners on the front lines is one that we have successfully pursued in Yemen and Somalia for years, and it is consistent with the approach I outlined earlier this year, to use force against anyone who threatens America's core interests, but to mobilize partners wherever possible to address broader challenges to international order.
So now we're launching an air campaign on ISIS in Syria. The same ISIS that was part of the rebel group against Assad that we wanted to arm earlier, especially if you're John McCain. Okay, so this is pretty complicated. But one thing that I think has to be pointed out is that President Obama pointed to the examples of Yemen and Somalia as a model of what to do. We're going to copy our successes in Yemen and Somalia. What's funny is he calls them successes, but they're continuing to, well, continue. We're still doing drone strikes and bombings in Somalia and Yemen. So, and it doesn't really seem to have slowed down Al-Qaeda or those Al-Qaeda offshoots, Al-Shabaab and the other Al-Qaeda group in those countries. In fact, we've been doing this for about 13 years, and we're still using the George W. Bush authority to bomb these countries, and we don't really have a whole lot to show for it. Now, for me personally, I'm not really advocating troops or anything, but I'm just saying this action just seems to be a recipe for more endless war, as well as endless profits for the defense industry. I want to get your guys' thoughts on this situation.
I'm a little more open to the whole idea of American involvement than most. Again, part of me wants to look past the previous 10 years, which is part of the problem. We can't really, even though I want to. But last time I checked, this is part of a more international effort to get involved in stemming ISIS. This doesn't seem like it's going to be quite the same situation. It might be a weird hybrid of Libya and the first Gulf War and the second Gulf War. I guess that would be how I would imagine it. It might be something kind of like that. I don't know. It's really early and really hard to tell. So we'll see what happens, I guess.
I think that pragmatically, kind of the plan that they've laid out, just saying we're not going to send kind of tons of ground troops, we're just going to attack them from the skies, essentially. I can understand that, and that's probably the most pragmatic way of approaching it. The problem is they've called it an open-ended conflict, and this is the reason why America gets into so many problems with, wars. Is that if they wanted to eradicate ISIL, if they really saw it as a genuine threat to kind of America's security, they could mobilize the entire American military and wipe them out within a week. And whilst I necessarily wouldn't advocate for that if they really were worried, that is what they could and should do. However, if you have an open-ended conflict where you're just going to keep on sending airstrikes and drone strikes, then that's just going to keep on rolling on. It's going to keep on funding the kind of military-industrial complex. So that's the real issue that I have. It seems that their plan is, okay, we'll destroy ISIL and we'll just attack them by airstrikes. But that's not a good enough plan for me. That's not as in-depth. And okay, they may have more in-depth plans that they're not telling the public. But just saying, it's going to be an open-ended conflict, that's simply not good enough. People want to know, what the end, how we can say mission accomplished, when will that point be, and just saying when ISIL is defeated, that's simply not good enough in my opinion.
Yeah, can I point out that Libya didn't work? We got Gaddafi, which, by the way, is a much easier job getting a leader to be ousted than destroying a fragmented group. But Libya is actually getting worse by the day. Like, Egypt had to do like secret airstrikes or airstrikes they didn't tell us about because the rebels aren't our friends, which seems like a pattern that we always run into. And like 6 months ago, 8 months ago, we wanted to arm the Syrian rebels who are ISIS, and now we're going to destroy ISIS in Iraq and Syria, but we also have a policy that Assad has to go. And we also don't want to help Iran, who's also enemies with ISIS. Like, it's a disaster, and it seems like super awful that on the eve of September 11th, the Hope and Change president is using the authorization of military force that was passed in the wake of September 11th to extend our conflict to more parts of the world. And again, Somalia and Yemen aren't like paradises now. We didn't solve everything. Like it's just like I'm just surprised he didn't throw in Pakistan there, because those are all places where we bomb and we create more enemies. Like, our airstrikes piss people off, and they see that the West is interfering. People will join under the banner of ISIS.
I kind of agree. I think we're causing more disruption than we need to be. Once again, the more we do this, the more we're creating hate amongst that region. There have been no telltale signs that they're actually going to attack on American soil, so to speak. And for this to continue being a problem just shows how poorly it was planned in the first place, back when Bush started the whole process.
Yeah, you know, what's funny is Stephen, you were saying that this would be the most pragmatic choice. Under the circumstances, I guess it kind of is. It's the best, worst choice, because we have to choose between shit and crap, and it's essentially the same thing.
ISIL, at the moment, isn't posing any threat to kind of the American nation. There may be some Americans who are in that area and they're under risk, so I can understand that. But people like John McCain is just saying, kill them, you know, kind of they hate us because of our freedom. And that's completely nonsensical. If these, you know, terrorist groups wanted to attack a kind of a truly freedom-loving nation, they'd attack Sweden, they'd attack Norway or Denmark. Those are kind of really free countries and societies. America isn't the freest society by any stretch of the imagination. And so one of the reasons why they would want to attack you is because you're bombing them, and you know, some people have made arguments that kind of America kind of started this whole mess in the first place. Now, I know that's childish to say, oh, you started it, but let's not forget as well is that if, you know, America starts using airstrikes and drone strikes, then there's probably going to end up being Iraqi civilian casualties, and then the families and friends of those casualties, they're going to start hating us, and then it's just going to kind of 30, 40 years down the line, there can potentially be another group. So I hope that, you know, preceding forces these airstrikes, that they're really careful and know exactly who they're bombing, you know, and it's a difficult thing to do, I know that, but I really hope that they're paying attention and not just using these signature drone strikes where they're just bombing anyone who they think might be a terrorist.
And one more thing about them hating us, I don't think that ISIS hates us. I know for sure they don't hate John McCain or Lindsey Graham, because they're the ones who voted to put all those guns there that they're picking up. I mean, they should love America. All their artillery was left behind by us, and we gave it to the Iraqi military, which part of this plan is reconstituting that force, which is a disaster, and it isn't going to work. Like, we left them all those weapons, and now they're using them to take over. Like, if anything, we gave them foreign aid. So, I mean, they should love us.
And we don't forget, we also allowed for their creation by sowing the unrest in the Middle East by our bombing of Iraq and basically all of our interventionist foreign policy regarding the Middle East. We created ISIS. Congratulations, America. You built that.